Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Saint Maud. So what Saint Maud's essentially about is we center on, well, Maud, and she used to be a nurse, but after an incident has happened, she has since turned to faith, and it's really consumed her to the point where now she has become this caretaker of sorts to basically try to get people to basically try to save people through her faith. And one day she stumbles across this character, Amanda, who she becomes a caretaker for, and makes it her sole mission to make sure that she can try to save Amanda, before she ends up dying of cancer, even if Amanda doesn't really feel the same way. Whereas, and at the same time, Maud is continuing to stay as devoted to her faith as possible, and we start to see how that really starts to hurt her in the process. So Saint Maud overall, I was absolutely hyped beyond belief for this film. I mean, this is a movie that I've been looking forward to for a long time now, all the way back to the end of 2019 when they were showing, trailers for it constantly before everything, went to shit in terms of like coronavirus and things like that. This was a film that I was incredibly hyped for. It, was supposed to come out so many times, and it's one of those films where I legitimately did not think it was going to see the light of day for a while. I didn't know if we were actually going to get it this year, but thankfully we finally did. It's A24, so obviously any A24 horror film interests me, but this one looks so innovative and different and just really seemed like something that was going to be right up my alley. And when I heard that it was, of course, going to premiere on Epix, which was an interesting choice, I did not think that's what they would go with, but hey, that's what they decided to do, so I guess that works. They put it on Epix, and I finally was able to watch it, and this film very much lived up to the hype for me. Saint Maud is a very effective film that is a little bit different than I really was expecting, but also is just such a great reminder of why I enjoy A24 as much as I really do. We're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast, and I will say right now, because this is a pretty small cast, there really isn't a ton to say here, except for the fact that the acting is definitely one of the best parts of this entire film. I think both of the lead performances here do an incredible job, but it has to be said, this film would be absolutely nothing if it wasn't for the masterful work from Morfydd Clark, who absolutely blew me away in this film. She does such an incredible job of really showing just the kind of character that Maud is. You understand that now, yes, she has become very manic. The faith has basically consumed her. Every single aspect of what she does, every choice that she makes in life is predicated by her faith. It's predicated by what she ends up, by the choices that she's made in her faith. This is paramount with everything, but you also can tell that she very much is a tortured soul. There's a lot that she has been through as a character, and Clark does such a great job of showing how Maud is feigning a lot of her religious devotion for her real emotional baggage that she's going through. She's doing this as a way to cope through that, and Clark just does such a great job of demonstrating that here, especially towards the third act of this film. I mean, the entire film, we get, she really does a great job of diving deep into this character, but especially in the third act of this film, you really just get to see her full talent on display, and I think the movie is worth watching alone just to see her performance here, because she absolutely kills it in this film, and definitely is a consistent highlight throughout this entire thing. I've been a fan of her in other things, but this film really does show just how talented of an actress she really is, and I hope after this film she's able to get bigger roles, because she definitely does have it in her for sure, and I think gives such a star-making performance here. And then Jennifer Ehle as well, who plays the character of Amanda, she also does a really good job in this film. Amanda is very much the complete opposite of Maud. She's a lot more relaxed and sardonic, and not a lot really does seem to faze her as a character, and I think she did a really good job here. You really do get to see the kind of a person that Amanda is, and how that really kind of clashes with Maud, and the chemistry between these two is so good. They work off of each other so well, and it's definitely a consistent highlight throughout this entire movie. You really do find yourself so engrossed in their relationship, and a big reason for that is the chemistry between both of these actresses, who both just demonstrate just how great they truly are in these roles. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, because that's the thing I think that's going to shock a lot of people. You watch a film like this and you see how ambitious and different it is, and you would think that this would be a film from a really experienced director, but no, this is actually a directorial debut, and it is one of the most daring that I've seen in quite a bit. I mean, what Rose Glass ends up doing with this film, I think, is incredible, because yes, we have seen this premise done before, but the way that Rose Glass goes about it is not really what you would expect. In fact, the majority of this film I wouldn't really categorize as a horror film. Yes, it's definitely there. There is a horror undertone throughout this entire movie, and eventually it does come to the forefront. But for a while, this is very much a psychological drama, and really seeing, you know, what this has done to this character. And she does a really good job, I think, of directing this film and really putting you into the perspective of someone like Maud. There's so many ideas that she brings to this film. There's such a specific style to it. It feels so confident, and it's just such an impressive debut from her. Definitely, after this film, glad, you know, this is something that A24 always does well, is they bring in new talent and they usher in these great filmmakers that end up becoming household names, and I could very much see Rose Glass being one of them, because I really loved what she ended up doing here. I think everything she does with this film, she just does such a great job of giving herself her own voice, you know, really showcasing what she can really do as a talent, and I really love what she brought to this film. I think her directing is definitely so incredible, and definitely moving forward, I could absolutely see her becoming one of those household names, because I think she definitely did such a great job directing this film. But the writing as well here, I think, is really top-notch. I mean, I really was a big fan of the writing throughout this entire movie, especially when it comes to our main character of Maud. The movie does such a great job of really giving you information of who she was, but never presenting it in a way where it feels overbearing. The film is very patient with the way it goes about it, and some people are not going to like that. The film is very slow-paced in that way, but I think it really does work for this film, because Maud as a character is so fascinating from the second that you meet her. You can tell there's just something off about her. The way that she is constantly talking about God. She refers to God not just as a religion, but almost as a lifestyle. Every single thing that she does, you know, she feels like is for God. And anyone that doesn't do that, she is repulsed by. She's disturbed by. It's consumed her so much that anyone that isn't a part of that faith, she has an issue with. And you start to see how evasive she really does start to become throughout the film. I mean, Amanda as a character is someone that really isn't that, you know, religious. She really doesn't care very much about this at all. We know that she has contracted cancer and she's probably going to die very soon. And she's kind of in a place in her life where she doesn't really care very much about any of this. She has kind of a no fucks given attitude, because, well, she knows she's going to die soon, so what does she, you know, what does she really have to lose at this point? And Maud, seeing this, though, you can see really wants to do everything she can to try to kind of change Amanda and try to get her on board with this, and seeing how it isn't working out as well as Maud wants it to. I mean, you really do understand what this means to her, but you also understand it because the film does a really good job of showcasing why Maud has become this way. There is an incident that she's gone through. We find out in the beginning of this film. I'm not going to say what it is, but you can see why that has very much consumed her, and it's changed her entirely. There are many scenes in this movie where Maud will often meet up with older friends or people that she used to be with in her life that she can't interact with anymore because they're just not on the same wavelength. This tragedy has impacted her so much, it's changed her entire sense of self. You know, she feels very lonely in this movie. I think loneliness is a huge part of this entire film, and I think it's one of the main components of this movie is that Maud feels very alone. She feels very trapped in that way, and that's why she's drawn to someone like Amanda, because she feels like this is someone that she can save and needs to save in that way. She feels like this is something that she needs to do in order to feel whole again, in order to rid herself of this tragedy that she's gone through, and I think all of that is so well demonstrated in this film. But again, the way the film slowly reveals a lot of what she's going through, I think is so well done, and like I said, the relation between Amanda and Maud is just so deeply fascinating. These are two people that you know are going to clash. They are in no way the same, and that really unsettles you because you know that something is going to happen. You know that something is eventually going to occur, and you're just kind of waiting for it to happen. And it's not one of those things where you're bored because of it. No, you're fascinated and you're riveted by the fact that you can tell things are not really working out here. There are certain choices that Amanda has made that Maud is not happy about, and she really kind of wants to rid her of that. But at the same time, it's not really Maud's call to do that. And that's something else I enjoy about this movie, is that you're not really on Maud's side throughout a lot of this. You can see that what she's doing is really fucked, and a lot of what she's following is very fucked as well. And I think that's something else that the film just did a really good job with overall. And even some of the choices that Maud makes in this movie are really interesting. There's certain things that happen, particularly in the second act of this movie, that seem like they almost contrast with Maud's way of life. You wonder why she's doing the things that she's doing, and I thought all of that was really well done. It's one of those things where, like, you know, we could have seen a lot of what Maud was involved in. We could have seen her life before all of this, but I feel like the film fills you in on enough details to where you don't really need to. You understand that Maud is a completely different person now than who she was before this tragedy happened, and the film does enough to really, explain, who she is now and why she's making those choices. But again, the idea of, is she doing it because she actually is devoted to this faith, or is she doing it because it's a way to compensate for, her failures in her previous life? I think the film does a really good job with handling all of that, and I think that was definitely a consistent highlight throughout this entire film. I think dialogue-wise here, this film is really well done. There are a lot of lines that definitely did stick out to me, and I just think overall, in terms of the screenplay, I was so riveted by pretty much everything that was going on here. The cinematography, as expected here, is amazing. This film has a very specific look to it that really does stick out. It feels very drab. It feels very dark in that way, and I think it definitely really does work for this film. But it also has this sense of brightness to it that really does work very well, but it feels almost artificial in that way, and that's something else I really enjoyed about this movie. I think A24 always goes all out in terms of cinematography, and this film really is no exception when it comes to that. Just so well crafted in terms of that stuff, and the score here by Adam Bukowski is also so hauntingly beautiful. It's so well done the way he goes about it. It's definitely one of the things that sticks out in my mind, and after watching this movie, I found myself going back to that score a lot. I think it's definitely one of the things that really does stick out to me about this film. So again, and the ending of this movie as well is absolutely insane. It's gonna be one of those things that definitely stick out in people's minds, because like I said, you're waiting for a long time for something to happen, and eventually it does. The film goes full on into the horror genre, and it really doesn't hold back. The last 20 minutes of this film are absolutely insane. I could not believe the places that this film ended up going, the depths of where they end up going with some of these characters. I mean, it's crazy what they ended up doing, but it really did make sense for the story, and the final shot especially is absolutely incredible, and definitely one of my favorite endings, I think, of the entire year. It's one that I'll be thinking about for a long time and, endlessly theorizing about. And it's also the kind of ending that not only gets you to question, what happened in that final scene, but really gets you to question a lot of the other things that you saw throughout the movie. Was it real, or was it just in Maud's head? Is it actually what's going on, or is it just a fabricated version of what Maud kind of wants? And that's all something that you're going to question throughout the entire movie. I don't want to spoil what all of that means and things like that, but I think that's something the film just did a really great job with, and definitely one of the things that really impressed me about this film. So again, there's a lot I'm really loving about this movie. Is there anything that really does bring it down? Well, I will say The movie is 83 minutes long, and a lot of people are going to look at that runtime and they're going to think that it's too short. And I think for the most part, that runtime really does work. I think the film is very well paced overall. The only thing I will say is that there are some aspects of the plot, particularly with the character of Amanda, that I think I would have liked to see dived into a bit more. And I think it actually would have helped the film if it was a little bit longer. We could have actually gotten to see some of what she's gone through. We know that she's a dancer. We know that she's involved in some other things, but we just don't know a ton about her as a character, and especially where the film leads her at the end of this movie, I think it would have made it that much more effective. It's still the ending of this film is still very effective and very shocking where they end up going with it. But it's one of those things where I think it would have been even more effective if they would have spent a little bit more time on Amanda as a character and given her just as much depth as they do to Maud. Because Maud really gets as much as I think she really needs, but Amanda just needed a little bit more overall. But really, other than that, Saint Maud is a very effective and very satisfying horror film. I think there are a lot of things about this film that we have seen done before, but it does it in a way that feels very intriguing. It's got a stand-up performance from Morfydd Clark. It's got some really great themes in there. It has a lot to say about why we are so devoted to faith, whether it's legit or whether it's something that we're trying to do to, hide behind an emotional trauma. I think it does a really great job with that. It's a great directorial debut and writing debut for Rose Glass, who really just shows how much of a talent I think she's going to be after this film. It just really is everything that A24 is great at when it comes to horror. It's a great reminder of how much I enjoy their films, and it definitely was worth the wait for sure. And though I do think that, again, it could have benefited from a slightly longer runtime, it could have dived into things a bit more, for the most part, I am very satisfied with the way this film turned out. It's very effective. It's a film that I'm still very much thinking about after seeing it about a week ago. I still very much love a lot of things about Saint Maud, and I am going to give it an A-. But over, guys, to my review of Saint Maud. The most guys saw this movie overall, their thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.